So today was a really, really great day. I think first and foremost, waking up that early and heading up to Denver was really nice. It was really good to sit down and have like a good conversation with you and Allison as well. I think that definitely contributed a lot. Just feeling comfortable and starting to, just enjoy more about how I've been so fortunate to explore parts of Colorado and see different education systems, whether it's in Nashville, in the Valley, up in Denver, here in the Springs. I think all of those like ideas and spaces and influences that I've had have been very, very formative. And on the trip up, I just had this like really, really good feeling, kind of like antsy a little, because I was like anticipating like just being able to like go in there and talk to Nora and like hash out all these ideas, which fortunately we were able to do. But it was nice to get there early, have a good breakfast, and just like calm down, collect myself a little bit, and then having that discussion with Nora was just so pivotal. I think that in itself was a beautiful way to encapsulate the learning that we experienced this week. And it really gave me a lot more perspective that I didn't have before the first time when I came and spoke with Nora. Because that first time we came in, we had just read Ravage, and those ideas were much more accusatory and kind of like diminishing charter schools, and it was kind of just like pointing to some of the flaws instead of highlighting the facts, or at least that's how our conversation was heading when we were questioning her. So it was nice to have another group of people who had a much more rich, I think, experience with the material, and therefore had really good questions to ask. And I could just see every single moment of every second that she was speaking, each one of us were like jotting down ideas, writing down questions, and like thinking. It was beautiful to see how many gears were turning in that room, because it gave me this like appreciative sense of the learning that I'm experiencing, especially because it's so rich, and like having this like exposure to Mountain Song, the idea of community schools, and then building on that information and looking at some of like the Tinkin and Kat's reading, that was really, really good to like help establish and firm a basis. And then last night also, like the chapter 6 reading out of the Cats and Rose book was dealing with marketing, so it was like really interesting to like sit down in this conversation with Nora and think through like how was the lottery kind of marketing charter schools, and how is that landscape in New York City different than here in Colorado. And I think I really, really enjoyed being able to listen to her give us some of the historical precedent of the charter movement, and how that in itself has like really gained a lot of strength and has been much more bolstered, just because of like different funding mechanisms, different ways that people are engaging with charters. And I think when we had the funding discussion, that helped clear things up a lot, because even just before still doing these readings, I still had this like connotation that all of this great stuff charters are able to do is because like Goldman Sachs or somebody is paying into the school to like get a return on their investment with like human capital. But it's not like that. It's much more nuanced. It's much more intricate. And I think that's just one of the greatest parts about how this last half of the week has like really, really pushed my thinking. And I think it's pushed all of our thinking, because we're all asking these really, really great, rich questions, which are warranting really meaningful responses from the people we're speaking with. Unfortunately, it didn't work with the New York City guy, but I think that was a beautiful contrast in that his approach, given that he's in a very similar position as Nora, was to kind of just shut us off like that. And I wonder, maybe if we had been students in like New York City and had access to him that way, if he would then therefore be able to like speak to us more, or be willing to speak to us. So I don't know if it's like an outsider's thing or anything, but I think regardless, it was still really, really nice to have the Colorado context be like present and much more relevant in this discussion that we were able to share with Nora. And it was just so good, because like she was on fire, right? Like every single second of it, just producing so many like clean, like neutral thoughts. and not being too heavy on one side or the other of the spectrum, which I felt was so responsible, because in a position with that much power and that much kind of like authority of others listening to what you have to say and being like a voice for this, having somebody who's very like mindful and also has like background experience of like being a teacher, I thought like gave her a really rich perspective, and then therefore gave us a really rich perspective. And I think at this point now, I want to keep moving forward in this way in terms of like trying to collect these ideas, collect all these different insights, and like plug them in with like appropriate questions that are like aiming to get really, really deep at the nuances that exist within policy, within like local control, within more like statewide control of like public education systems. And then on the last note, I really appreciated how Nora was speaking about the language that she uses now, because I remember the first time we came, at least when I went with Tina, like the questions we asked and the environment warranted like a different set of language and a different way of defending public schools or charter schools. And this time it was like, now they actually had a vision and a mission, which was like really impressive, because before that writing on the wall wasn't there. And being able to walk in there and actually see that now they have some like kind of clear direction and language that they're using made me think about how like specificity of language is key, and communicating that is a huge piece of marketing, whether it's public schools or charter schools, which are still public. So like that whole connotation is now broken in my mind, and I have a deeper understanding of it. So I'm just like completely blessed to have had this kind of like full circle experience with material and time at CC, and also like resources outside. So I'm really, really looking forward to like trying to continue building on this, and I know I will, because learning's always happening, always, always, always. Bless.